Today we are going to react to a video by Gosia on Cosmic Agency. She claims to be having contact with extraterrestrials living on board a spaceship circulating the Earth. I have no idea of how to prove or disprove this claim, but she is making some interesting comments about gravity, and it does appear to make a lot of sense what she's saying, and I think it's quite different from our current understanding of gravity on Earth, and it's too good to actually just ignore or dismiss out of hand. So I'm going to comment and make some hopefully intelligent reactions to some of the statements. So let's dive in and see what she has to say.
The harmonics of a frequency is the mathematically precise combination and sequencing of frequency changes that create both a perceived solid object and a dynamic sequence of movements between those perceived solid objects. All dynamic sequences in precise order are harmonics of a frequency and function in a linear sequence of waves within the media of potential energy, moving to form a standing wave or a node. This movement to form a standing wave or to form a node is a flow or a current in the ether, and this current is gravity.
Yeah, that is a mouthful. There's no way to prove or disprove that claim, but we do know what standing nodes are. And what's very common with somebody talking about frequencies or standing waves or standing nodes is that they don't specify, or they just ignore the medium that they are talking about. For example, when people talk about frequencies, yes, it could be a frequency of waves in sound, in air. It could be frequency of electromagnetism in radio waves from a radio station, but usually it's never or very rarely specifies what frequencies are people talking about, or what is discussed, and the same here. Um, it's possible that there is an ether, although many claim that there is no such thing in popular modern science. But let's for a moment say that there is an ether. So that will be possible, that there could be a frequency in the ether, and it's possible that there is a standing wave or node in the ether. So that's all possible, but it comes back to the question of, is there an ether, and can it be proved or can it be measured? And the gravity being a flow in the ether, that's another interesting concept. But let's see what she has to say.
All objects, big and small, are the result of this gravity flow. A planet, a star, or a black hole are formed in their precise locations because there is a gravity flow in that location converging there, and its harmonics of a frequency create a standing point or node known as the object. So, no object, big or small, has gravity. Gravity is not the result of mass and matter. Gravity is what forms mass and matter, and it is directly proportional.
Yes, that's a very new concept. It's reverse of what modern science says, that mass creates gravity. Here they're claiming or saying that gravity actually creates the mass. So Let's listen some more. She does describe what gravity is, and it has, from what I could tell, the connotation that it's consciousness viewing the space. But let's continue.
Svaruofera, Stellar Navigation, 2019.
Yeah, in these communication and these paragraphs of knowledge seems to be different segments of communications over time. So it's not just in one sitting. But that's fine. Let's see what they have to say. And the woman speaking is an announcer or a voiceover for Gosia of the cosmic channel here, but it's not the acclaimed aliens themselves. It's I don't know how she Gosia gets the communications from the claimed aliens, but I'm thinking that I remember hearing her say that there was some sort of text message or some sort of computer connection she had with the claimed aliens. But that's a whole nother discussion whether that's real or not. What I'm interested in here is reacting to the wisdom of what gravity really is, and it does make sense in a weird way. So, but let's continue.
In our understanding, gravity is the flow or the direction and strength of attention of a consciousness. The more attention from that primordial consciousness something has, the bigger and denser an object will be. So, contrary to Earth science understanding, an object's mass does not create a gravity field or flow. On the contrary, the object exists and has mass because there is a concentration of gravity there in that precise spot in space. A flow of creative intention called gravity will form an object with mass. Maris Varu.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It actually means consciousness exists everywhere in space or within objects. And she, further along in this video, she does claim that it's the attention or the consciousness looking at a certain point that causes a flow of gravity, which causes the collection of mass in that particular point. But let's continue.
As a base, the Earth is 1g. 1g is equivalent to 1 Earth's gravity. Compared to Earth, Erra and Temer have 80% of Earth's gravity. Procyon, 120% of Earth. Dakota, 70% of Earth. Note from Yaski. Earth is 1g at sea level, not 0.8g as on other planets. Procyon then has more gravity than here? Yes, 120% or 1.2 g terrestrial. This means that on Procyon you weigh 20% more. Yes, more weight. It's hard to be there. Wow, and why is there more gravity than here? The planet is big, but it's big because it's in a gravity point that generates it. It is bigger than the Earth, but this is not necessarily as a rule. It's more a matter of the density of the matter of a planet. Question from someone. Why does the Earth have more gravity than other planets? Does it have to do with the amount of consciousness attention it receives? But why would it be? Because it contains more consciousnesses which are the same. As simple as that. It receives a lot of attention from the etheric field. Why is that? Well, that is already a matter of the source itself. I cannot know. That is already something very above. Because it gives contrast to other planets, or because it simply has many attachments to the ideas that form the Earth and all that it contains. Because there is more mass. More mass means that there is a nexus point of gravity at that point.
Yeah, that reminds me of some earlier videos that I did, which says particles are formed at points where the consciousness has a viewpoint of dimension. So that seems to correlate very well. Um Anchor points or particles are formed at the viewpoint of dimension. So, or is yeah, that's correct. I forget the exact wording, but it's basically a viewpoint of dimension which forms the points or particles. And you can assume that the particles are collected together, or many particles are collected together from the mass of the individual particles, and then eventually, when enough particles are collected together, such as a gas or a dust in space, they will eventually form planets. So this kind of all makes sense, and it's too easy to dismiss this as hogwash. I think there's something to it. Makes sense.
Or maybe because it has a lot of attention from many consciousnesses of many races cumulatively. Yes, also, everything adds up. But wait, we have planets that are very large in mass, but their gravity, as in
Yes, but they are talking about people consciousness. I think the concept is that consciousness exists everywhere. So consciousness is inherent in physical objects, not only in living human beings, and that's why the mass is forming there, if I understand it correctly.
difficulty of walking, is not high. So why is it here? Because there is more concentration of consciousness at that point, creating a node in the potential energy field. The ultimate why is beyond me. Okay. And what is the difference between gravity and magnetism? How does magnetism fit in here? If two magnets attract each other, does it have anything to do with it? Or is it something else entirely? Magnetism can emulate gravity when it is modulated at a very high frequency similar to gravity, as in artificial gravity generating devices. But it is not the same. Also, centrifugal forces generate the illusion of gravity, and it is
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It, it's being said that artificial gravity is an AC type field. It's not a DC type field, constant field. It actually has a frequency to it, which is what an AC field is. That's very interesting, and I could explain many points that aligns with the motional electric field effect that I basically wrote a paper on a number of years ago from the fundamental atomic particles in an atom or a molecule. But let's hear what else they have to say.
Also used in spacecrafts. Gravity is a flow or direction of the thought sequence of a consciousness, whether of source or of an insect. What that flow of consciousness is, it is not known. It is only known that it is there, and that what receives attention is reinforced or formed. Magnetism is only a flow of charges in a generally metallic medium. Generally, it is generated by electric currents and is retained by the charges of polarities in the molecules that make up the metal or the material with magnetic properties. Okay, consciousness doesn't play a role there.
Yeah, that aligns very well with conventional science. Magnetism is caused by moving charges in metallic conductors. That's very well agreed with. I think that there's no conflict in claiming that that's identical to what conventional science says.
In the end, consciousness plays a role in everything because it is the only thing there is. Yes, but not in the sense that consciousness generates it there as the direct source. It's just that everything is consciousness, and in one way or another, it is always consciousness that generates everything directly. For example, that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make noise? The truth is yes, because there is always something that is there perceiving and creating with its consciousness. The tree itself, for example. There is always something that is perceiving it. Yes, I understand. But you said that magnetism is just a flow of charges in a generally metallic medium. So consciousness does not create this kind of magnetism in the same way as it creates gravity. Because if we say yes, well, then consciousness creates everything: electric cars, storms, the Cabal itself, etc. But now we are dissecting from the more specific level. Yes, it depends on levels. Okay, you are comparing gravity consciousness with magnetism electricity. But gravity consciousness encompasses everything else, including magnetism electricity. That is, screw is part of car. Car includes that screw. Okay, but if you have two magnets that
Yeah, the claim that they're making is that consciousness is fundamental to everything, and everything is based on consciousness. I would agree with that, but we have no currently no way to measure or detect consciousness directly, other than measuring the effects of consciousness. It's like a human being. We can detect consciousness and logic and reason in a human being, but we can't measure it. Even if we dissect a brain, a human brain, I don't think we will ever find a few cells or a point where consciousness is living. I mean, consciousness is the universe. So, in other words, God or the Supreme Being is not located above our heads or in the sky or anywhere else. It's actually everything, everything we touch, feel, and see with our human senses. That is the Supreme Being. It's a hard concept to grasp that there's no location for this consciousness or the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being actually is located everywhere.
attract each other, there is no electricity there. Yes, there is, but not in the form of current outside the object itself.
Yeah, magnetism is formed in magnetic materials from charges moving in a loop or in a circle, so to speak, if you can imagine that. And a ring of circulating charges actually creates a small magnet. So if you have enough small little rings in a material, it will, and if it's aligned correctly along an axis, it will actually multiply and actually accumulate magnetism. So there is an electricity there, but from the outside world, you can touch a magnetic object without being electrified or without uh, feeling electricity. It can be totally neutral, electrically speaking, but it can have a strong magnetic field.
The electric charge is contained in the molecules of the material itself. That is, the magnetic material retains a definite charge, like a battery. Another chat, 2023, originally in English. If there is matter because there is gravity, why doesn't matter disintegrate when we nullify gravity, like in a spaceship? Because that is not nullifying gravity. That is nullifying one single specific effect of gravity, as it is not one single frequency. It is many. Like radio waves, there are countless gravity waves as well. And it is the ones in the highest frequencies that are the ones responsible for manifesting existing objects. And yes, if you nullify that gravity, then things do disintegrate.
Yeah, and we currently don't have any way to measure AC frequency or AC waves in the gravity medium or the gravity field. I would love to know how to build a gravity detector or a sensor that would measure the frequencies of the ether field or the frequencies of the ether flow. I would love to build a detector like that. I think that would be a completely new medium for communication, not just nullifying or modifying gravity. It could be a complete new medium for communication. And the question I would have is the speed of gravity waves, of these AC frequency waves in gravity, are they limited to a certain speed, or do they have unlimited speed or close to unlimited speed? Is it like instant propagation throughout the entire universe? Yeah, those are very interesting questions. I don't have an answer for it. I mean, I could probably meditate on it and know the answer, but right off the top of my head, I would classify that as unknown. But there has been some research claiming that gravity has a speed, and there was, I'll try to look up the paper, but there was a doctor that claims that gravity actually has a specific speed, which is greater than the speed of light. But yeah, I have no details or arguments against or for such a claim. But let's continue.
Okay, and I have this question from someone. Can you measure gravity like we do? I mean, are we doing it right? Mass over mass times distance squared? That formula helps to understand, but it's backwards. But it helps, yes. What would be the correct one then? How do you backtrack that formula? The formula is okay to understand how things interact between each other. But backwards, I mean, it's the gravity which is creating the mass, not the mass, the gravity. But there is one basic big mistake there. Gravity is not a constant. In that formula, they place it as if it were. That changes everything. Athena showing the formula for gravity.
Yeah, she's showing the Newton's gravitational formula or gravitational constant. Um, and it is, at least on Earth, being used as a constant, uh, but the aliens claims that it's a variable, it's not a constant. It's just happened to be measured as big G on Earth with a certain value.
F is equal to g times the product of their masses, m1, m2, divided by the square of the distance between them, r2. There is the g. As it's affected constantly by consciousness movements around. How do you update the gravity frequency maps then when you space and time travel? How do you keep obtaining the new addresses all the time? How is that even done with gravity and all not being constants? Using sensors, interferometers. It has to be mapped as we go along. And it can be calculated to know what it will be in each place in space using gravitational formulas.
Yeah, there's a guy called Bashar in California that claims objects can be moved instantly to another location by emulating the frequency of the space that it wants to be moved to. Don't claim to have any proof of this, but that's what I understand is going on, and how these UFOs are traveling intergalactic distances, or not intergalactic, but interplanetary distances, by emulating the frequency of space where they want to move to. And when that completely encapsulates the object you want to move, then it instantly transports itself to the new location, even though it's far away.
Which are not that one. You have a frequency address in the navigation computer. That address is gravity, a gravity map. But it's not a constant, it changes all the time. It changes, but formulas can.
Yeah, so the question I have is the point or location in space that they want to move the object to, is that a vibration or frequency or an AC effect in the ether, or is it some other AC frequency? And what exactly is it a frequency of? You know, they talk about the Bashar guy in California talks about the frequency of the space itself to needs to be emulated to move the object to that space. I'm not really sure what they're talking about when they refer to a frequency of something. Could be that it's a frequency of the gravity field, or it's a frequency of consciousness. Could be a frequency of the ether. I mean, there's more questions than answers here, but I'm glad we're having this discussion or this dialogue, and things are starting to seep out. And even though it's perhaps a little bit on the leading edge of science or meta science, it's some interesting topics to discuss.
Predict how. But you need powerful computers. It's not that difficult once you have the data. What about traveling in the past? Can the computers access that to create new gravity maps? But what if it's way in the past where the computers didn't register anything? Then how can you go back there? Someone had to be there to map it, to use its frequency map for guidance. And it can be calculated as well, although that is not very accurate. If you don't have the map, you can't go back. As simple as that. You can calculate your map, but it will not be the same past as the one you want to go to.
Yeah, it reminds me of the an old movie I saw called The Time Machine or something like that. And I was wondering how do they know what frequency or what dates to go in the past to get the machine to move to a different time. I mean, that just seems very dangerous. I mean, if the machine has any kind of error, you could end up in a place of time and location that you didn't want to go, and how do you get back home again to your current time and location? That seems very, very dangerous. It seems like you may have to send out a bunch of robots or a bunch of um, pods, in a sense, that are automatic and try to return back after a certain amount of time or a certain distance traveled. But it seems like a lot of work to go to every place in the universe or every time in the universe or time in a time track. That seems like a lot of work. But we don't have that technology here yet on Earth. But those are interesting questions to ponder about.
The more accurate your gravity map is, the more accurate your time jump will be. But each single moment and tiny place everywhere, that's a whole new map. To be mapping it all out and keeping records, it must be billions upon billions of maps. And it's constantly changing on top of it. That's why you need quantum holographic computers. A lot of computing power.
Well, it sounds like the aliens have quantum computers as well. It's not just the Earth scientists that use that, but we don't know what kind of level of technology is used by these Tagetan or these Pleiadian people. They may only be a few thousand years into the future, so they're pretty close to Earth sciences. But how about talking about technology that's a million years into the future? That's small by galactic measures, but let's say, yeah, I don't know, but speculation would say that there are even more advanced technologies from even more advanced societies. But yeah, that's probably pointless to talk about because we don't have any information about it.
But you don't need to register everything, as the frequency area tends to fill in your gaps automatically. Okay,
I'm not sure I understand that your frequencies would automatically fill in the gaps. Not sure what they're talking about there.
and another curiosity of mine, why is gravity a pull in the first place and not a push, for example? It's neither. It's only a current, as water. But a current does pull you in one direction or another. It is not neutral. It has a definite flow vector, yes. It presses everything like a water current presses a leaf against a rock in a river. Why does it do that? Why does it have any visible effect at all? Without it, you wouldn't have discovered gravity in the first place, perhaps? But why do we all walk on the ground? And why is it difficult to walk up than to walk down? Because of the same reason, it's difficult to walk upstream or to paddle upstream. Precisely. But why is that current there in the first place? Maybe for us to know it exists, to interact with it? Because the frequency that is manifesting matter dictates the vector of the flow. The only way to explain this completely is with the complete theory of manifestation.
Yeah, that's a theory that I'm not familiar with, but that makes sense. I can speculate that there will be a type of gravity field that's convergent instead of divergent, and you could use they basically design tractor beams or create repulsion effects from converging gravity fields. And yeah, that's very speculative, but I could see how that could happen. I could see how it's possible to reverse gravity. In other words, you could point a ray gun or a gravity gun at somebody and actually make it go away rather than pull towards you. And yeah, I can see a whole new science kind of coming out of this discussion, and probably hundreds of years in the future we'll be discussing this in details, and we will know how to do this.
It's all there. I see, okay. I will have to revisit that. And why is it hard to go up? There is no up and down, really. Still, it's harder to go up. You are going against the current. Up and down, that is only relative to the vector of the flow of gravity. The current is flowing in the direction pointing downwards. Must have to do with the core of the planet itself, the current going towards it. Because gravity is flowing towards the center of a planet. That's why there is a planet in the first place. That's why matter accumulated in that place in space and formed a planet. So the human body is receiving that current as well, obviously. Yes, it's everywhere. We all must be thankful to gravity for choosing to be detectable then.
Yeah, gravity is everywhere, and gravity is not shieldable, as even agreed by conventional science. That's true. That I agree with that claim.
Otherwise, so much technology would not be available. Forget all frequency maps. Yes, and there is a very wide spectrum of gravity frequencies, like there are many frequencies of radio waves.
Yeah, I don't know what she's talking about there. That there are many frequencies of gravity waves. Maybe she's talking about the motion of the charges in elementary or molecules or atoms of different materials, because that would generate different frequencies once they're moving and circulating around a nucleus. But we currently don't have any sensors or any equipment to detect gravity AC frequencies. So we're kind of at a loss here to be able to measure or detect what's really going on. But I'm all for building the first gravity detector that can measure AC fields. That would be a revolution if we could do that.
I was about to ask, what else is it used for? In what other technologies do you use gravity? Mainly for telecommunications and for propulsion, as in anti gravity engines.
Yeah, that's interesting that she mentions telecommunication or communication in general for through gravity fields. That brings back my original question about the speed of gravity fields. Would it be instant or faster than speed of light, or what would be the speed factor there? That would be interesting to know, because uh, we're talking light years away between planetary objects, and you just can't have any form of communication between objects that are that far away in space, unless there's a faster option than the speed of light. Perhaps gravity waves or consciousness are an option, and they probably don't travel at infinite speeds, but because otherwise there wouldn't be a wave. A wave by itself, by its own definition, means that there is a alteration between two mediums, and it measures over time as an AC frequency. So I could speculate that gravity waves are not instant. They're not everywhere present at all times in the universe, but there is a speed factor involved. But it could be possibly hundreds of times faster than the speed of light, but I just don't know. It's just pure speculation on my part.
Another chat, originally in English, 2023. Interferometers versus spectrometers. Is detecting a gravity field around a person a sign then that the person is real, in contrast to the NPC with no real or strong gravity current around him? Is that what is meant? That when you throw the interferometer on the person, the reading returns nothing, like a signpost? The gravity field of a soul is too weak to be detected by normal interferometers. The signal of the soul is very high frequency, and it's easily confused with everything else because, strictly speaking, everything that exists has some connection to source. That is a soul of some kind.
Yeah, it's interesting that she mentions that the soul has a frequency, and we know that an AC frequency would have to have a medium. So my question is, what is the medium? Is it the ether? Is it gravity? What is the medium? That's a very, very interesting topic.
That's why spectrometers are used for that. But they are terribly inexact, as you know. Gravity does not really exist as such, as it is only an allegory of the mind that is placing attention onto whatever. What do you mean it doesn't exist? Everything is mind. That flow is like potential energy becoming something. The putty in the hands of a sculptor. There is no gravity as humans see it. It's a flow in all directions, depending on where something with a mind is looking.
The pair depends on where something with a mind is looking. That sounds an awfully like viewpoint of dimension, as I've described in my earlier videos. But this just sounds too good to ignore. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in this video. That's why I decided to do a reaction on it.
Sensors detect gravity all right, but they must see it by its effects and not directly. As in, you can detect a ship by seeing its wake, but not the ship itself. Gravity is mind. Gravity is a thought. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are gravity.
Well, that's pretty deep. Yeah, I will have to sleep on that one. That's very deep indeed.
But when you throw the interferometer on a person, what is the device reading? You can detect the body, not the soul. A person, as such, has mass and is perfectly detectable, but you cannot tell if source is in that body your machine is detecting. The interferometer cannot detect the soul. Even your bathroom scale detects your mass, right? Mass and gravity go hand in hand, but you are detecting the matter energy, not if there is a connection to source coming from there or not. Interferometer only detects mass and gravity of a thing, not the soul. Soul signal is something else. There is no signal, by the way, as it's not connecting to source because it is already source. But Aneka said you throw an interferometer on a person and it's like a lamppost, no soul. That was using spectroscopes, not interferometers. Do not confuse them. One looks at the colors of the auric field, and the other, gravity and mass displacements. Interferometer looks at gravity and mass. Spectrometer looks only at colors. Spectrometers are found on Earth, primitive ones though, and interferometers on Earth are as large as a city, when here they are as large as a parking sensor for a car, those which fit inside your closed fist.
Yeah, that's incredible to think about if true. They must have some very good scientists making these sensors.